He was just a slip of a boy when grief came knocking. In 1874, Silver City whispered of a young mother's passing. Catherine Devine died, and little Henry McCarty stood orphaned at her grave, eyes red as desert clay. His stepfather drifted away, leaving him to fend in a town seething with prospectors and thieves. Hunger gnawed his belly, emptiness a stone in his chest. From that hollow place, Henry made two vows: never again to taste the bitterness of helplessness, and never again to let fate dictate his days. He clipped his mother's locket tight and took on a new name, Billy, like a shield against sorrow. Under moonlight, he thumbed coins from pockets to fill his hush-hungry stomach. Jail cells tried to cage him, but Billy wriggled free through chimney shafts and barred windows. Every escape was a note in the outlaw's rising ballad. Silver City in 1875 was a silver vein threaded with vice. Chinese laundries hummed with steam, saloons reeked of sour whiskey, and gamblers dreamed of fortune. 16-year-old Billy prowled alleyways, lifting bread, nickels, and the occasional pistol to feel power hum in his palm. He slipped into jail for laundry theft, slipped out by starlight. He robbed a pack train, escaped in the confusion of a thunderstorm. Every narrow miss carved a reputation. This kid was quicker than jailers, quicker than lawmen, and just as quick with a grin. By 1877, Lincoln County was a tinderbox. Lawrence Murphy and James Dolan ran The House, the only game in town, squeezing ranchers with high prices and low regard. Along came John Tunstall, an Englishman with fresh gold in his pockets, opening a rival store and treating locals with respect. In Tunstall's eyes, Billy the Kid saw a spark of hope, someone who looked past youth and grime. But Murphy's men despised Tunstall. On February 18, 1878, Deputy William Morton rode to claim Tunstall's horses for an old debt. A shot rang out. Tunstall fell. Billy watched from behind a rock as Jesse Evans finished the deed with cold precision. The boy's heart thundered. Vengeance flamed behind his eyes. Out of that grief rose the Regulators, a band sworn to avenge Tunstall's blood. Dick Brewer, Doc Scurlock, Charlie Beaudre, and the kid himself strapped on twin Colts and a Winchester carbine. A local judge, his orders soaked in poppy law and frontier politics, deputized them. In their own minds, they wore badges. In truth, they rode the line between justice and murder. Billy stood among them, pale face lit by campfire glow, and vowed,
"They shall answer for his blood, every last man."
His voice was steel wrapped in youth, and every man at his side shivered at the promise. Dawn broke March 6, 1878, over Blackwater Creek. Mire-stained horses carried the Regulators through tangled brush. Before them strode Morton and Frank Baker, compelled by fear and seeing no escape. The creek's edge glistened with dew and blood. Morton raised trembling hands. Charlie Beaudre hesitated. Then 4 rifles snarled across the water. Lead tore through Morton's chest. 2 shots, and Baker collapsed beneath a mesquite. A 5th bullet found William McCloskey, a Regulator who'd begged mercy, silent forever in the reeds. Billy paused, mouth dry. He knelt, scooping water in cupped hands, letting the creek carry away their sins. In that hush, he heard the ghosts of his own betrayals whispering,
"This is what vengeance tastes like."
Just weeks later, on April 1, 1878, the Regulators returned to Lincoln's dusty Main Street. Wrapped in long coats, rifles cradled, they lay behind a low stone wall. Sheriff William Brady, hat tipped back, badge gleaming, strolled oblivious until the first volley ripped through the air. Rat-tat-tat, the kid's Winchester barked in rhythm. Brady staggered, spun, then crumpled. Deputy George Heineman charged forward and met the same fusillade. Billy sprang from cover, snatched Brady's fallen rifle, his heart pounding as he limped through a hail of bullets. A prick of metal seared his thigh, but he pressed on until the echoes died away. That day, Lincoln County War shed its veneer of feud and bared its raw hunger for blood. Revenge calls like an insatiable beast. 3 days after Main Street's carnage, the Regulators rode to Blazer's Mill. There, they cornered Andrew Buckshot Roberts, accused of abetting Murphy's men. Roberts crouched behind a log, eyes glinting with defiance. Charlie Beaudre stepped forward, then stumbled, struck by Roberts' last blast. Chaos erupted. Billy the Kid lunged, shotgun a bolt of lightning in his hands. One shot, and the old man fell, life seeping into the dusty earth. Billy stood over him, chest heaving, ghostly quiet among friends turned foes and friends lost to gunfire. When word of the killing spread, Governor Lew Wallace scoffed at legal flimflam. He branded the regulators outlaws. Every man's saddle bore the hot iron of reward posters.
Dead or alive, 500 for William Bonney.
Saloon doors rattled with the hum of rumors. The Kid's face stared down from chalked broadsides, hawkish eyes challenging any man to try his luck. In every watering hole, old men spat and shook fists. Young men tipped hats in awe. Billy the Kid became both devil and saint, depending on the drink you poured your whiskey into. January 1881 found Billy in a cold Santa Fe jail. Chains bit into his wrists, but his eyes danced with fire. Reporter George Chittenden from the Las Vegas Gazette slipped through the bars to ask his story. Billy leaned forward on his cot, lighting a squat stick of rolled tobacco.
Feller says I swung an axe at a woman. Nonsense. I take care who I swing at, and I keep my word.
He drawled. He laughed, a half-mocking, half-proud chuckle that rattled the cold cell. Even behind iron, he bent the law's ear to his legend. Masilla's courthouse smelled of dust and blood. The judge, jury, and townsfolk packed the room to convict Billy of Sheriff Brady's murder. A verdict of guilty burned on the judge's lips. Sentence: hang on, May 13, 1881. The noose waited like a hungry snake. But a snake can be bested by lightning. On April 28, the Kid put on his greatest show. With sleight of hand, he slipped cuffs, scaled a jail fence, and burst into moonlight with 2 pistols blazing. Deputies dove to the ground. 2 fell wounded in the yard. Billy paused under the stars, pistol smoke curling from his fingers, then vanished into the night, free once more. For 10 weeks, Billy became a phantom on the plains. He slipped between Mescalero Apache trails, holes up in loyal rancher cabins, and fed rumors to Pinkerton spies, some so bizarre they spread like wildfire. He wrote letters to friends, boasting of deeds and promising a quiet life once the dust settled. Pat Garrett, once a friend of the Kid's, donned the mantle of hunter. He studied the outlaw's ways, favorite haunts, friends who'd betray him for gold, the rhythm of his breathing in stone houses. The posse closed in night by night until all tracks funneled near Fort Sumner. July 14, 1881, dawn painted the sky in bruised purples. At Pete Maxwell's ranch, the Kid rose early to fetch water from a pump in the kitchen yard. He stood bareheaded, head bent over the brimming bucket, the world still turning slow beneath him. Behind him, Garrett crept, rifle in hand, heartbeat in his throat. No shout, no warning. The crack shattered dawn's hush, and Billy the Kid spun, eyes wide in shock. He staggered once, then fell backward into the dirt, a single sooted hole through his heart. The wind carried away his last breath. They laid him in a pine coffin and paraded him before Lincoln County's townsfolk. Thousands came to stare at the lifeless boy-turned-legend. Souvenir hunters shaved locks of his hair, pried splinters from the coffin's lid. They held onto fragments of the Kid as though relics could bind his restless spirit. Newspapers fanned the flames. "Billy the Kid lies cold," they screamed. Yet in every barroom, in every scrap of paper, his shadow lived on, riding gusts of wind, haunting the whistle of distant locomotives, and luring fresh dreamers to the edge of lawlessness. Even now, you might glimpse him at twilight, a lanky figure in a Stetson, 2 revolvers gleaming at his hips. Folk singers coax his story into ballads.
High on the mesa he rides, chasing the wind with devilish pride. Gun smoke and echoes on the trail, Billy the Kid will never fail.